Hey gang, Kevin here, Life22, and we are in studio today. We are like hardly ever in studio. We haven't been in studio, we've been in the studio, but we haven't recorded from the studio equipment in a hot minute. And well, part of that is because today, it's the day before Memorial Day, but also, there's just a lot of things that I just need to talk to you about, and we haven't done a long form, and I figured like Sunday mornings, that's a good time to do a long form on a Sunday and chat with you. So with the Sunday morning podcast, so we got some exciting news. We are in the beta program for our transistor.fm account, which does our distribution, which is kind of exciting. I figured I'd throw a bunch of stuff at you guys in a long-form discussion today. So this first part is kind of exciting because being part of the beta program, we're able to do a video upload into Transistor. So instead of us having to rip the audio out and send like an image with it, we're just going to do what we would do with YouTube, where we would just upload it into Transistor, and Transistor will then distribute it to, right now, Apple Podcasts. So we'll still have to manually distribute our stuff to TikTok and to Facebook. But eventually, TikTok, eventually they'll have Spotify on there. But right now we'll have Apple Podcast. We got approved for the video version, and we got approved for we got accepted into their enrollment for this beta. So this will be exciting. This is going to be the first video that we're doing right now. I'm actually looking at the size of our files, so I can go up to 30 gigabytes of stuff that we can talk about per video. Like, that's nuts. Anyways, not that you guys want to listen to me talk for 30 gigs, but 30 gigs per second. Wham. All right. Well, with that said, I did want to do an in-studio podcast to test all the equipment, make sure everything was functioning as it intended, and also to give you guys that update. I was talking to somebody earlier this morning as I went out to get my Tim Hortons coffee, and I was thinking to myself, man, I should revivify an idea that I had 15, 20 years ago. So it was right around the time that like It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia was still on the air, and it was still like popular, right? Like, and if you don't remember, maybe you were born yesterday or you were born 5 years ago, you probably don't know what It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia was. It was a television show that was with the awesomely funny, yet probably guys like me don't politically agree with him, Danny DeVito was in it. Everybody likes Danny DeVito, regardless of his politics. You love Danny DeVito because Danny DeVito's Danny DeVito, right? Like, he's the guy from Taxi, and he's Frank from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, and I think he is the voice of that. I wasn't a huge Dr. Seuss fan. The Lorax, I think he's the voice of the Lorax. So just a lot of, and that's three. That's three different roles that he's played in his career of just impeccable things, right? Like, his wife or ex-wife or something like that was Carla from Cheers. Like, man, this guy has lived a life. Well, so It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia had Rob McElhaney, and I'm trying to think, Kate. I'm drawing a blank. Anyways, they so it was a show, and it was kind of like it was a show about a bunch of people running a bar, and they went to high school together, and two of them are siblings, and then Frank is their dad, but he's not really like their blood father, and it was like a whole thing, and it was just like they always got into nonsense, and it was always stupid stuff, pushing the envelope, and it was relatively funny. But it was called It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia because if you've ever been to Philadelphia, Philadelphia is not sunny. Philadelphia it's trash. It's trash. Every time I go to Philly, I've been to Philly like 3 times in my life, and the first time I went, there was tumbleweeds worth of trash rolling across the ground, and it was, not fun. I was not a fan of Philadelphia. But my flex pipe got a tumbleweed of garbage bags rolling down the street and went under my vehicle, and the hot exhaust from me driving into Philly caused the bag to touch it and then like melt to my flex pipe on my exhaust, and so it was horrible. And then the car smelled for like ever because of it. And I got to my friend's house, and there's like junkies on his stoop, and I'm like, which house is yours? And he's like, oh, hold on, I'll come outside. And he opens his door, and there's the same junkies that I had just seen, and he's like shooing them off the porch. Get out of here! And they're like, literally, the guy was like mid tying off, like on his porch. Like, it's just, and I don't know. Then my daughter wanted to go to Philly. The last memorable time I went to Philadelphia, my daughter wanted to go, and so I had gone to Philly to show her, and we went with me and the wife, and we went down to Philly, and I don't know. We stayed at an Airbnb. It was like supposedly like 5-star rating, and it was just, I don't know. It's like you open the door opens right up to the street, and you're just like in the ghetto. Like, but then you walk like 4 blocks, and it's like a historic district where like Rocky ran up the steps. I don't know. I'm not. Philly just rubs me the wrong way. I get it that it's like part of our nation's history and whatever, and it's like, I don't know. It's like some of the most famous bands in the world, right? Like their founding was in like their mom's basement. I'm sure their mom's basement is not the cat's ass of places to be. So, and then 30 years goes by, and you're like, oh, let's go check out mom's basement where we all started. Like, nothing's changed. If anything, it's a little grosser, a little bit more mildew has built up down there. You know what I mean? More boxes of shit. But anyways, Philly it's never sunny in Philadelphia. It's always like miserable and dreary. Like the sun hardly shines there, and it's just, that's why they call it It's Always Sunny, because it was funny that they did some filming in Philadelphia, but then like majority of the show was filmed in California, and it's always sunny in California. Even though California, for the most part, looks like Philadelphia because of just all the trash and homeless people and crime and drugs. So, that said, I, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, thought of creating our own local TV sitcom. And we were going to call it It's Always Dreary in Bradford, because we were going to go with the truth of what it is, because Bradford's typically dreary. I don't think I've ever been on a Bradford either and seen a sunny day, which is funny because Philadelphia is in Pennsylvania, and so is Bradford. But then just like the show, we were going to film it in Olean. So we were going to call it It's Always Dreary in Bradford and then do a filming in Olean. And I was thinking about that, and I was like, man, we should revivify that. And so to start this, let's use this video podcast to take this idea that I've created and just put a pin in it, right? Like, and let's have people bring ideas to life. Like, let's if there's anybody out there that would like to, help sponsor and finance this, we call those people producers. So we're going to start from the ground up. We're going to need, my daughter's cleaning her room, which is perfect. That, she does that during the middle of our podcast. But let's do a cool. If you're interested in playing a character in this, if you want to help in the writer's room, if you want to, contribute money and become a producer or an executive producer, if you'd like to help direct, maybe that you've got some cinematography skills that you would like to put to the test, you think that you've got the chops at what it's make, this is going to be a grassroots, Olean-based, a project. Maybe you want to be maybe we have a cartoon character that just comes on set and he needs a voice for his voice acting, and then you think you have the chops for that. I think there's a lot to be done here at Life22 Studios, and I think that the potential is real. I think it's great. I think something like this could happen. So let me know. You can reach out to us via Facebook, via any of the web links below. Have almost every one of them have my cell phone. They've got our email. They've got a phone number in which you can reach us. You can do what Luke Winky does and send us letters to one of the offices or the P.O. Box. And with that said, guys, I thought that would be a cool idea, so I wanted to throw that at you. I wanted to throw the new upcoming distribution of our channel out at you on this Sunday morning. And then I wanted to leave you with a small, brief excerpt, which we'll get into later in the week when we do the weekly, our weekly little shorts that I've been producing. So I'd like you to think about this on this Sunday morning. I would like you to think about the concept that everybody has become more and more entitled, right? So I had a conversation with a potential tenant not too long ago, and he was lumped into one of these programs, right? And he was, well, the program doesn't pay for this, the program doesn't pay for that. The guy was like, well, I can't find a job because I'm in this program. And then but I could get a job. And if I got a job, but then I'd have to work a lot to make this program, to make this work, but then I could get kicked out of the program. And I'm like, if you can work, then why shouldn't you be out of the program? Well, because, it's not fair that everybody else is in the program and I'm not. And I'm looking at him like, I'm not in the program. Why should you feel so entitled that you get to stay in a program when you're fully capable and an able-bodied adult? Well, what happens if I don't make enough money to survive and to pay all my bills? And I'm like, welcome to reality. Welcome to real life. This is one of my, this is one of the pet peeves that I have, is because I have to do it. I've got kids. I don't get to rely on food stamps and medical insurance. I have to cover all these expenses for my children. And what happens if I can't put food on the table? What happens if I can't make my mortgage payment? What happens if the gas gets shut off? All these different things. I wish I could just wrap myself in a security blanket that my parents got me and then, sit around all day and play video games and drink hot cocoa like I was a little kid on a snow day, right? That's nice when you're a kid, man. It's nice to be nostalgic about that. It's nice to have a couple days out of the year where maybe you get to do that because you busted your ass all day long and you were able to do that and pull that off. But you don't get to do that for life. That is not yours. And it gets me thinking about all these things that have been coming up in the news lately in our local politics and everything else. I keep seeing, articles being written by the newspapers and other outlets and stuff like that. And they're talking about, taxing non-for-profits and the government collects our tax money, right? You work your butt, you bust your butt. The government takes your taxes. They take a chunk of your money in the form of taxes, but then they redistribute it into grants, which non-for-profits write money for. And then those non-for-profits, the program, right, the proverbial program we just discussed that this individual was part of, they write grant money and they get these grants because not all of them are government actual run organizations. They are essentially subsidiaries of the government. They are not a government. They are like a 1099 subcontractor, and these subcontractors essentially they say, well, we don't make any money. Well, yeah, but you make enough money to to pay all your CEOs and all that other stuff, whatever they want, but you don't have to pay taxes on the money that's left in the non-for-profit's bank account at the end of the year. That would be considered profits, right? Well, it's not profit. Well, it's donations. It's this. It's that. It's still it's income. Okay, so you don't have to pay taxes on that, and then because you're a non-for-profit, the government allows you to write for these grants, and then you take essentially our taxpayer dollars and do your little mission. The problem is that's not the government's job, is to not do community and charity, right? So they say, well, we're not doing it, but you're funding it. Right? So you're funding these programs that are supposed to be done by churches. They're supposed to be done by community organizations. If you want to be a non-for-profit, I think that it's very fair to say that you should generate enough money. I had a conversation with a friend of mine about things like this the other day, and I think that there's a lot of people out there, and I'm probably going to get hit in the teeth for this one, but it is what it is. There is something to be said about non-for-profits paying taxes. I don't see if you're not paying income tax on it, that's one thing, but now all of a sudden you're exempt from property tax, you're exempt from payroll tax, you're exempt from all these different taxes, and now all of a sudden I have to subsidize that. I don't think that that's fair to the general public. I don't think that's fair to me. I don't think, like if I so choose to, and then people will argue, what about churches? Okay, well, why should my tax dollars go to subsidize your church or synagogue or mosque, right? What if I go to my own church, synagogue, or mosque? Well, I can donate to those and put my tithing in to those places, and if I need to put in more, if I feel that it's warranted, then I do. If churches are to survive, they have to have, some kind of like enrollment base, some sort of donor base that they can pull from. If they don't have that donor base and we're just relying on the government to subsidize churches that eventually nobody goes to, then why are they even in existence? Well, because they've always been in existence. Well, if nobody's going to them, we didn't say that. We didn't go and take our tax dollars and prop up Blockbuster because Blockbuster was going out of business. No. We didn't go take our tax dollars to support the typewriter repairman, right? The different businesses that were typewriter repairmen went on to become either computer repairmen or they slowly withered and died. And that's what has to happen. If you're not going to change and evolve with the times, then you will wither and die. If you're not going to have a message that people are willing to go to on a Sunday, then your church shouldn't be subsidized by my government. We're subsidizing it, but it's supposed to be a separation of church and state. So I don't understand why, certain organizations can do churchly-like things and get money from the government, and other churches can't because there's a separation of church and state. And that same separation of church and state also gives them exemption from taxes from the government. I think that it's my 2 cents on it, and people are going to argue with that because, well, first off, they want to get their free, essentially, food stamps. Essentially, that's what non-for-profits grant funding is, and that's what these income streams from the government, from my tax dollars, from your tax dollars is. It is welfare from the government to these organizations, and it's not the government's job to fund these organizations. It is my job to make charitable contributions to these organizations to keep them afloat if I so fit, and each and every one of us out there, if we so fit. These programs shouldn't exist. And by having all these little umbilical cords and apron strings out there, you have other people that eventually leads down to that first scenario we were talking about, which is that this guy doesn't think he has to. He's worried about, making too much money to get out of the program or and then he will have trouble paying his bills. And I think that this is a cold splash of reality, because eventually those programs, they aren't just going to slowly wean away. They're going to disappear all at once. It's going to be like a scene from a Marvel movie. They're all just going to vaporize, and you're going to be like, wow, these programs, the program that I was on is not there, and now I am relying on it, and it doesn't exist. And so now I have to figure it out. And just like the typewriter repairman, right? Someday the typewriters are going to go away, which they have. Blockbuster, they started to do something that Netflix was doing, but by the time they did it, it was too late. And that's why Blockbuster went by the wayside, because they were also brick and mortar heavy, right? They had way too many brick and mortar stores that needed to be liquidated, and then switched to an online model like Netflix and all the other companies that are doing it, Prime and Disney Plus, and everybody got into that market, right? So the brick and mortar stores don't exist anymore. So this giant, we all clutch at this nostalgia, right? We want to keep certain things around because we miss them, and they were there when we were kids. And hey, I loved going to the video store when I was a kid, but guess what? Nobody goes to the video store anymore. I would love to take my kids to an old-timey video store, right? But I don't even have the equipment at my house to plug a video in. Even Xbox doesn't even have a spot for your DVD anymore. So it's one of those things. Even Xbox doesn't have a place for your stuff anymore. You can't even pull your DVDs in, and it's one of those things you just don't have. It doesn't exist. Lennox, can you please shut the door, buddy?
Okay.
I should put an on the air sign, so because the kids just randomly just come in, complete disregard. It is what it is. So, anyways, yeah, no, I mean, it's just these things don't exist anymore, and they don't exist for good cause. And one day a market will dry up. Blockbuster will not be able to sell DVDs anymore because eventually we're going away from a physical disc, and everything is going to a streaming service, and it is what it is. And eventually you stop using a typewriter because now you're using a computer. So now you can start repairing computers. There is a business in town that I had to deal with recently, and they used to fix typewriters, and they still fix printers, and they already know that printers eventually are going to go by the wayside because we're going to a paperless, less physical copy society. But they still have guys that fix them in the meantime, and they're going to be the only place in town, or one of the few places in town that does that. They're going to fix the time clocks for people that have to physically punch into a time clock. They're going to sell people on digital time clocks. They're going to sell people on that stuff. They're going to, because the one guy was going over with me, like, you need a firewall. You need to have this physical box that attaches to your internet that, for your business, and it has to be a firewall, and that's required for most credit card terminals, unless you use cloud, which is, one of my businesses uses cloud. Almost all of them use cloud terminals now, right? So, like, if you're not using a physical, like, plug it into a phone line system, you can get away with certain things. But their business has grown and adapted to be congruent with the time period in which their business is currently existing. It's not trying to clutch on to typewriters, right? And that's something that not-for-profits have to deal with. And then also, like, we're not changing with the times, where like what I've discussed, that, like, there are certain things that the government is not supposed to do. It doesn't matter that the times are changing and we're modifying what the government is doing. Like, no, that's a bad decision. That is a bad, and not all evolutionary changes are good evolutionary changes, right? Because that's when you get mutants, right? Like, you definitely, you grow too fast in one category, and you will have some mutated bad outcomes. Not, almost all evolutionary changes are mutations, but a lot of mutations are not correct mutations, and eventually you weed those out. It happens, right? Like, but that's the issue with our government, and that's the issue with this. So, to get back to our original point, which was complacency and entitlement, right? So people need to be less entitled in today's society, and I think they need to learn to fend for themselves, and they should rely on their community. And I know that's been, like, the overall theme for the last, like, couple weeks, couple months, couple years for me, is that the community needs to be a community, and the government needs to be an extension of the community, but not the end-all be-all to the community. Our founding fathers discussed this. They put fail-safes in place, which people have been slowly eroding over time, and we just need to make it go away. We need to make that extra power the government has not be used for the way that people are trying to make it used for. And we need to stop teaching our children that we need to have faith in the government in areas that we need to have faith in faith. We need to have faith in things that deserve our faith, like religions, like, the betterment of our societies, stuff like that, our moral values. We should have faith in that stuff and not the government. I was speaking with a friend of mine yesterday. I trust the government to be terrible with my money, so I should not give it as much as it is insisting out of me. That's the warm embrace of collectivism is not what we need to be doing. Mandami, that is horseshit. Socialism is failed. Communism has failed. It's never been properly tried, as everybody keeps claiming, and you'll never find a scenario on this planet that it will work. Just like books like The Giver, over time it will fail. At first, the first couple weeks is great, and then as soon as bad actors inject themselves in, because we are all human, we are all, to some degree, bad actors as well as we are good actors. If men were inherently good, we would not need. If men were all angels, we would not need government oversight. And that was Thomas Jefferson said that, and that was the purpose of that, was because, we have to have something that kind of broadly pushes forth things that have been collected over time, like, right, thou shalt not kill. Like, essentially we took our religious values of 10 commandments and put it into government, so at least we could all see common core umbrella and enforce those rules, and then we leave the rest of the gray area for us humans to figure out amongst free markets and our society without really further involving the government. And that's what we got. So you got a almost 25-minute podcast out of your home skillet, Kevin. And with that said, right into the show. Let us know. Let us know what you think about, like, It's Always Dreary in Bradford. I think that'll be a good one. I think that this podcast may be a good one, and it'll be a great test. A nice 25-minute podcast at almost 5 gigs for the new HLS video stream to Apple Podcast and YouTube and wherever podcasts are sold. Don't forget to like, subscribe, gang, and we will see you next time on Life22. Have yourself a blessed Sunday, and don't forget, tomorrow's Memorial Day. Spend time with your family. Remember, because it is Memorial Day. And in time immemorial, we will see you next time.